20th.
Your recent gift to New England Public Media can go twice as far thanks to your employer. Check with your Human Resource Office or visit nepm.org to see if your employer matches employee donations. It's an excellent way to double your support of the news and entertainment you tune to and enjoy on NEPM.
You're watching New England Public Media, WGBY Springfield.
Music photography is like the music itself. It's part of our cultural heritage.
What I do is a form of music. It's just music for the eyes.
Best job in the world. I'm a rock fan. I want to see that picture and I want to feel it.
Cover of Rolling Stone meant you were something.
It's about music, artistry, and energy.
It's more than just a photograph, it's a work of art.
Tune in or stream Icon Music Through the Lens July 16th.
Coming up, stories we're connecting you with tonight. We pay a visit to a local dairy farm that's been serving the area for 215 years.
The dairy supply chain is very fast and clean and efficient, and I think it's really important to note that it's super local because milk is so perishable.
The Hatfield Historical Society engages students to chronicle the history of the COVID pandemic.
And they want people to know how hard this was for them, like the honesty in that, and that really comes through in their work.
And we remember a tragic loss on Mount Tom that occurred 75 years ago today.
On the rock wall adjacent to the monument, hikers have piled wreckage from the plane that is still being found in the surrounding woods.
Details on those stories and more up next on Connecting Point.
Support for Connecting Point is provided by our contributing viewers.
Thanks for joining us for Connecting Point. I'm 𝘁𝗲𝘀𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁 throughout the Berkshires, Pioneer Valley, and southern Vermont. National Dairy Month, a campaign that happens every June, was initially created in 1937 to promote drinking milk and has now developed into an annual tradition that celebrates the dairy industry. While that industry has seen a decline over the past several years, many farms still carry on the tradition. And producer Dave Fraser visited one in South Hadley to learn how it has survived for the past 215 years.
Dairy farming is a 7-day-a-week, 365-day-a-year job, and it's no secret that dairy farms have been on the decline. In fact, over the last half-century, New England has lost more than 10,000 of its dairy farms, and 2/3 of Massachusetts dairy farms have closed down since 1997. Today, there are about 125 dairy farms left in the Commonwealth, with most being in Western Mass. Denise Barstow is part of the 7th generation to work on her family's farm in South Hadley.
We started out as a crop farm, the Hadley staples, asparagus, broomcorn, squash, and then in the early 1900s we transitioned to full dairy, and our herd has grown over time. We currently are milking 300 cows and we have 600 head.
Through the centuries, the farm's motto has been, "Looking forward since 1806, a phrase that the family keeps in mind as they continue to innovate. In 2008, they opened the dairy store and bakery to diversify their business and open their doors to the community. The shop features homemade baked goods, prepared foods for purchase, and of course, a wide variety of dairy products.
So we have that as our forward-facing public farm stand. And then we also wanted to have something that didn't rely on the public as much, but was still really important for our community. So we have an anaerobic digester. It's a system that takes the energy potential out of cow manure and food waste and turns it into enough electricity to power 1,600 homes.
The farm is one of 800 family farms that's part of the 𝘀𝗏𝘀𝗀 Agri-Mart Cooperative. Every other day, milk from the farm is trucked to the processing plant in West Springfield, and according to Barstow, milk that leaves the farm can be processed and in the store in 48 hours.
The dairy supply chain is very fast and clean and efficient, and I think it's really important to note that it's super local because milk is so perishable. So these processing plants are set up to make a lot of different things, from cottage cheese and whipped cream to butter and fluid milk, and also a lot of different brands. So our milk is ending up on the grocery store shelf right here in the valley.
The Holstein is the main breed of dairy cattle in the United States, and it is what makes up the herd at Barstow's Longview farm. Cows are milked robotically. The robots use sensors to identify electronic tags on each cow to make sure no one cow is visiting the milking station too often or not enough.
We have 5 robotic milkers for our herd of 300 milking cows. Before, we used to milk our cows in a milking parlor twice a day, once at 4 a.m. and once at 4 p.m. It would take about 4 hours all told each time. So 8 hours of our day was just milking cows. So now our cows can milk when they want to get milked. Some of them are milking 2 times a day, some of them are milking 5 times a day. So our cows are comfortable more of the time, and every dairy farmer knows that a comfortable cow is a happy cow who's going to produce more milk and better quality milk.
New England dairy farmers have little control over milk prices, which are calculated by the U.S. government. But for consumers, local dairy purchases do more than just keep businesses like Barstow's afloat. They maintain open space in the community, ensure a resilient food system, and preserve local heritage.
We are very fortunate to live in a community that values having local agriculture, including local dairy, because when we have more farms in the area, we have better climate resilience as a community, and we have better food security. And I think that's only going to be more important as we go forward.
Every Friday night, Connecting Point explores the creativity, culture, and community that make us Western New England. But it doesn't stop there. You can find us online anytime for exclusive features and content. This week's digital exclusive celebrates a favorite New England summertime vacation destination, the Cape Cod National Seashore. It was established on August 7, 1961 by President John F. Kennedy and is celebrating its 60th anniversary. If you can't make it to the Cape yourself this year, have no fear. Producer Dave Fraser takes us there in this video essay. Don't miss this digital exclusive available online right now at nepm.org/connectingpoint. After the Hatfield Historical Society recognized that they only had a handful of records during the 1918 to 1919 Spanish flu pandemic, they decided to launch a website to collect stories and artifacts from residents living in Hatfield during the COVID-19 pandemic. I spoke with 𝘁𝗍𝗄 Baker, the collections assistant for the Hatfield Historical Museum, to learn more about this collection and to also hear how a group of elementary school students contributed their stories as well.
Kathy Gow is the curator of the Historical Society, and when everything shut down in March of 2020, we had to stay home. And so it was through bits of email and texting and so on. But really, Kathy's initiative as the curator of the museum to realize that we're living in really historic times and to put up this website to collect the stories of how people in and around Hatfield are dealing with it. So there's things up there that are artwork that people did, or haiku that people have written, or just reflections from various people living in Hatfield about how they're getting through.
One area that has been greatly affected by the pandemic has been education, and a group of 36 students from the Hatfield Elementary School participated in a year-long project titled My History that added their experience to this COVID-19 project. How did this project come about?
This started with Kathy talking to the teachers at the elementary school, which is conveniently pretty much across a big lawn from the museum. And so Kathy talked to 2 of the teachers there, Jenny Charette and Megan Millett, who are the 6th grade teachers, to be really forthright. This is amazing times. This is history project that they do in 6th grade. Usually it involves interviewing someone about their childhood or researching a time in history that the student is interested in. But the teachers and Kathy acknowledge that right now is a time of history that's really important, and that the opportunity to have a bunch of 6th grade students collect the images and data and stories of their voices and their experience is just amazing.
This pandemic has been something that is once in a lifetime for many of us, and you met with the students when they visited the Historical Society. What guidance or support did they receive for this history project?
One of the things that really struck me is the work of the teachers, and also, of course, the parents when the students were learning at home, to use every avenue possible to help these students collect their stories and to give them support to contextualize their experiences in a way that allowed them to think more analytically about what they were going through and to really reflect on what mattered and what they wanted to convey forward, to put in a historical context and what they might want someone to look back on 100 years from now.
What were the students' reactions when approached with this project? Were they able to really fully grasp this historical moment and reflect on this moment that they are living in?
They really were aware of it. And I think that part of that speaks to the teachers, but it also very strongly speaks to the students' ability to step up and recognize, like, oh, this is big. Because the sort of breadth of the projects, ranging from, how do I put more kindness in the world when I am unable to be around everyone? And how do I document what my family's going through? There were students that were really, really aware of political movements going on through 2020 and through 2021, looking at the wider world and realizing that this is a global pandemic and really connecting their own experience in Hatfield to the state and the country and the world.
You were just touching on the breadth of the work of these students and the range. Some are digital images, videos, posters, the acts of kindness. Which submission has really stood out to you the most?
Oh, goodness. That's a little bit like saying you choose your favorite kid. But over and over, the two themes that really touched me were the theme of kindness and care, and the sense that they had that they were part of something, that they had a desire for this to send a message forward. The awareness that these sixth grade students had of how might this help someone 100 years from now, and they want people to know how hard this was for them, like the honesty in that, and that really comes through in their work. Those two things, that they're concerned and they want people to be safe because this was hard.
One of the photos that really stuck out to me when I was looking at the website was the sign of the Smith Academy with the return to school date continuously pushed back. And it felt like we had so much hope that school was going to be back in session. Which photo do you think will be iconic years from now that really encapsulates the moment that we're living through?
Wow, that's a really great question. The image of a masked face and the little signs we see everywhere that says, 6 feet distance, keep 6 feet distant, and the phrase social distancing is so potent. I definitely think that's going to be historically relevant. Pictures of a Zoom screen is going to be really relevant. But I think that in terms of like an image that conveys the emotional impact, for me, is spaces of emptiness where there's nobody playing on the playground. Any of the images that convey that longing for connection and recognizing the loss of it.
Why is it so important to document the past and also engage young people in doing so as well?
It matters because we only see a keyhole into history. It's impossible to encapsulate everything that has happened, even with a very well-documented public event. And in ways, the COVID pandemic has been an extremely well-documented public event. But the private lived experience is puts a whole other nuance in it. It's so much more informative in a way of what was it like for these people to live through this time. And especially in context with what you said at the beginning of recognizing the absence of those pieces in the 1918-1919 flu pandemic, the chance now to capture those and keep them so that we would have those records going forward. Every museum around was aware of that.
Do you get the sense that the students are proud of this work that they've been doing?
I do. Yeah, I do. This project gave them a way to process what they were going through while they were going through it. That they had a framework of like, oh, this is a thing that's happening. I have a school assignment that addresses this. So I feel like these specific children will have I hope will have a little bit more ease coming out the other side and a little more resilience, because they'll already have done a little bit of processing of this is what happened, this is what my town went through, this is what I went through, this is how I documented it. And to me, one of the most telling pieces of that is where a child wrote, I made 9 pieces for this, but I kept 5, because it matters to them that they keep it for their own history as well.
75 years ago today, on July 9th, 1946, a converted B-17 Flying Fortress plane returning home from World War II crashed into the southern slope of Holyoke's Mount Tom. All on board were killed. The crash site went unmarked until 1994, when a monument was constructed to honor the men who died on that flight. Now, each year, families and friends gather at the Mount Tom B-17 Crash Memorial to pay homage to those who were lost. And producer Dave Fraser brings us the story.
Every year in July, a group of people gather on Mount Tom to recognize the loss of 25 lives in a plane crash that happened 75 years ago.
A converted Army B-17 flying south from Labrador and carrying 25 servicemen from overseas crashes into Mount Tom near Holyoke, Massachusetts.
The plane was a B-17 Flying Fortress on final approach to Westover Field. It was carrying 15 Coast Guardsmen, 4 Army Air Corps servicemen, 1 Red Cross official, and 1 medical doctor when it slammed into the side of the mountain, killing all on board.
Because the warriors, a lot of the lights on the mountain and stuff had been turned off, so they didn't have a guide. Planes didn't have the same equipment that they have today for radar and stuff to be able to know or exactly where they were on a very extremely dark night.
𝗂𝗲𝘀 was the director of Veterans Affairs in the mid-90s for the city of Northampton when he was approached with the idea of constructing a monument on Mount Tom to recognize the men who had died in the plane crash.
And so we went ahead and got up here and looked over the site and talked about maybe putting a little marker of some type along the trail. And then, as I like to say, 17 of the best people kind of came out of the woodwork to ask, can we be part of it? We want to be a part of it.
None of the men killed were local. They ranged in age from 18 to 43. Most were single and eager to return home from the war to parents, siblings, and friends.
My uncle was on the plane that crashed here at the site in 1946. Alfred Leonard Warm. My name is Alfred Leonard Stettner. I was named after him. So we've been coming here all these years to honor my uncle and the other 25 guys on the plane. First year we were here actually was before the memorial was built, and there was still wreckage on the ground. 1995, which was 49 years after the accident. Now coming here, it's this change from being a place of tragedy to be a place really of beauty and love. The fact that the community has done this, the fact that people come out in droves every year for the ceremony. Initially it was just a few of us, family members would come out, and now it's the whole community shows up. It's a wonderful thing.
And the home of the
The memorial site consists of a gravel path lined with birch trees that leads to a circular rock ledge enclosing a flat area in front of a monument. On the rock wall adjacent to the monument, hikers have piled wreckage from the plane that is still being found in the surrounding woods. For Ellen Stettner, this site is a place of great love, and although she never met her uncle who was killed here, her mother shared his story with her and her siblings.
This place and the people who created this memorial transformed what was a devastating tragedy into a place of loving kindness and and outreach and profound love. So it meant everything in the world to her to be here, and we came with her every year. We lost her in 2008, 5 weeks after my husband and I were married here on this place, and we will be coming here for the rest of our lives.
Frank G. Merriam. Arthur C. Miller.
As the names of the 25 were read aloud, a B-17 bomber slowly made a pass over the gathering of people. Next July, this group will gather again on the mountainside in Holyoke to pay tribute to their loved ones who served their country, but whose lives were cut way too short.
There's two stories here. The one story is about the 25 guys who served their country and then on their way home had the accident and died on their way home. And the other story is many years later, the local community coming together out of their altruism, their volunteerism, and building this memorial and honoring the 25 guys who died. It's a beautiful story. It's really what this country is all about, honoring the veterans, honoring the families, people they didn't know, the strangers who they didn't know, who they brought into this memorial. It's a beautiful story.
Universally, grandmothers tend to be held in high regard and play important roles in the lives of many families. Through a grant awarded by the Community Foundation of Western Massachusetts, Holyoke Media will present the fourth iteration of a multimedia and multicultural exhibit titled Our Grandmothers. With stories and photos being submitted to the exhibit by adult grandchildren, it celebrates the influence these grandmothers have had on their families' lives and in their communities. I spoke with 𝗺cie𝗿𝗲𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀 the exhibit curator to learn more about this exhibit and why it is so important to capture these stories.
This is an amazing project. I've been doing that since 2007. Every time is different. Every time we have different experiences. Sometimes we don't know if we are celebrating, mourning, crying, or laughing with all those experiences and all those beautiful and wonderful stories. This one is special because we encourage people from different backgrounds, different ethnicity to participate. So you don't have to be Latino or you don't have to be a woman. It's open to everyone.
It seems that across all cultures, this connection between grandmothers and grandchildren is very deep. And this recent iteration of this exhibit is really going to show that. What do you think it is about grandmothers that just make them so special?
Oh, you know, this is making me think about my own grandmother. So this is a reflection. I think grandmothers hold a special place in our society, in many societies. I think that legacy we carry with us. Sometimes we acknowledge it, and sometimes we don't. So that's part of this project, that you go through that and reflect on your grandparents and see how much you see them in yourself. So this is really important. And also, I want to highlight something here about grandparents. Today, in the 21st century, we have a lot of grandparents that are parents as well. So I want to just highlight that. That is very important. But in their exhibition, I want all different kind of experiences. From the grandma that could cook or bake a wonderful, cake, from a grandma that probably you don't know. Probably you have something that you remember about that grandma.
One story that was particularly touching for me was that of the grandmother who has Alzheimer's and doesn't really recognize her granddaughter anymore. But when she receives a kiss from her granddaughter, it puts a smile on her face and it brings back that connection. What story has left a significant impact on you?
Oh, we have one story. We have many stories, but one of them touched my soul was, we have a story from an immigrant that she cannot tell us her name due to immigration laws. And then she wrote anonymous, and we call it our sister of Guatemala. And the grandmother was about to be 100 years old, indigenous. And then she would not have the opportunity to go back if the grandma passed away, to see her. And that gave me goosebumps. That was one of the most powerful ones that I received. But I have to tell you, all of them are powerful. I had to tell you, when I have to edit all these stories, I have a box of tissue, because sometimes I say, I cannot continue. I have to deep breath and then go back, because all of them are experiences in many different ways that talks about universal theme that connects all of us, and all of them are really, really important. All of my stories.
One thing that I didn't really necessarily realize was that the stories of our grandmothers are telling the story and the history of our country. And it was just really amazing to me, because you're not thinking about that. What other revelations have come to light through these stories?
When we're thinking about history of stories, we always think about the powerful people. But we're not thinking about that. We have powerful people in our own family, in our own communities. And this is part of it. I think we have to recognize that legacy in many different ways, and this is a way to recognize this, because otherwise this stories is going to be lost. And that's the project too. The project is to recuperate and preserve those stories that connect all of us.
Now, this is the 4th iteration coming up for this exhibit. Why do you feel the need to keep continuing this exhibit and bringing it back?
So I think grandmother has a powerful role in our culture, and I think in many cultures, right? And that's why I think this is powerful, because we all gotta have grandmas. I mean, we cannot be here. We don't have grandmas or grandpas, right? So I mean, I think that if we go back to that, it's very important to have those stories and those memories alive. That's part of this project.
That does it for Connecting Point for July 9th, 2021. Remember, you can always find the stories that you saw tonight, as well as exclusive features, digital-only content, and more online anytime at nepm.org/connectingpoint. And please join us again next Friday night at 6, right here on New England Public Media, for more stories of the creativity, culture, and community that make us Western New England. I'm 𝘀𝗲𝘀𝗁𝑆. Thanks for watching, and have a great evening.
Support for Connecting Point is provided by our contributing viewers.
Music photography is like the music itself. It's part of our cultural heritage.
Best job in the world. I'm a rock fan. I want to see that picture and I want to feel it.
It's about artistry and